Hi, welcome back to Q&A with Dr. K. Today's question is there a withdrawal period after one changes from a meat-based diet to a whole food plant-based diet? The answer is, for most people, the answer is no. Your body doesn't get too upset when you choose the bean chili instead of the beef chili. It mostly doesn't know the difference, and it does quite well without inflicting any withdrawal symptoms upon you. That said, a significant minority, 10% of people perhaps, do get some significant withdrawal symptoms after a few months on a whole food plant-based diet after years of meat eating. So what might be behind that? What do you do about it? Why might it happen? My theory is this. At age 6 months of age, the baby is still nursing at the breast. And with all the love in the parents' hearts, my mother didn't know, your mother didn't know, but at that tender age, wanting to give the baby the best of nutrition, that jar of baby lamb, baby beef, baby turkey, baby chicken is opened. And from that time on, 3 times a day, animal flesh is slathered on that infant's intestinal tract. All through its infancy. By age 2 or 3 or 4, they're in the fast food restaurant eating their Happy Meals. They're off to a meat-based diet. By age 4 or 5, they're eating what mom and dad are eating. And 3 times a day, animal flesh is delivered to this child's intestinal tract, their liver, all through childhood, all through adolescence, all through puberty, the burgers, the pizzas, the hot dogs, the buffalo wings, all through their teen years, their 20s, their 30s. Well, you eat animal flesh 3 times a day for 30 years since infancy. I think that's going to change the metabolism in your body, that change the metabolic set. You're going to induce different enzymes in the liver, going to induce different microbiome organisms in your gut. The person's going to be metabolically different creature than someone raised on a whole food plant-based diet since infancy. And the child has been raised as a meat eater, who's been having the meat products flushed through their liver and their tissues every 4 hours since infancy. The changes can be pretty lasting. The meat is going to be containing muscle-based nutrients that are found in the animal muscle, carnitine, creatine, fragments of myoglobin, etc., that are only found in animal muscle. Now, our body's perfectly capable of synthesizing all the carnitine, creatine, myoglobin that we need. And when I use those terms, I'm not saying you need to go out and start taking carnitine and creatine tablets. Those are shorthand labels for probably hundreds of meat-based, muscle-based nutrients that flood through the tissues after every meat-based meal, which our body is capable of producing. But if they're coming in pre-formed every 4 hours, if they're always in the bloodstream, well, what is the child's body going to do? Lots of carnitine, lots of creatine around here. I sure don't have to make much. In fact, the body doesn't want to make too much carnitine because gut microbes might start turning that into trimethylamine oxide, etc. So I suspect that with the carnitine, creatine, myoglobin fragments, etc., always in the bloodstream since infancy and childhood, that child's body going to turn down its own production of these muscle-based nutrients, carnitine, creatine, etc., because they're always in the bloodstream. And that may be metabolically sufficient, not necessarily healthy, but metabolically sufficient as long as that meat-based diet persists and those nutrients are always washing through the tissues. But then what happens at age 25, 30, the person sees Forks Over Knives, they read John Robbins' Diet for New America. Somehow the plant-based light goes on. Ooh, I'm a plant eater. Wonderful. The animals appreciate that. The earth appreciates that. I think it's a great thing to do. But what have you done metabolically? You've really shifted metabolic gears here. All those pre-formed animal-based nutrients, myoglobin, hemoglobin, myoglobin, carnitine, creatine, and the hundreds of other muscle-based nutrients, suddenly they're gone. Now the body's got to synthesize all the creatine, carnitine, etc. on your own. Now, as I said, most people have no problem shifting gears and synthesizing all these muscle-based nutrients that their body was capable of making all along, but had been suppressed because of the constant presence in the bloodstream. But I suspect, due to the bell-shaped curve, there's going to be some folks out on the tail of the curve there statistically, especially who've been eating a meat-based diet for years and years, decades. They may not be able to shift metabolic gears so quickly. They may not be able to unrepress some of those methylated genes. They may not be able to gear up the enzymes in their liver. Maybe they only are able to make 80% of the carnitine, creatine, et cetera, that they need. And as a result, as the months and years go by, they draw down on these nutrients they have in their cells. And after a while, they develop real hunger for the animal flesh. And then when no one's looking, they'll go out and have a steak or a big piece of salmon, and those flesh-based nutrients flush through their tissues. And they say, yay, I feel great. I'm a carnivore, vegan, schmegan, man. I need my meat. I'm a caveman. And they do feel better when they're eating the animal flesh again. But something to say about that. I mean, what are we really observing here? Is this the true nature of human beings? No, in my opinion, what we're looking at, this is an acquired dependency created by feeding a human infant animal flesh 3 times a day since infancy. No advanced primate does that. No gorilla feeds its young animal flesh 3 times a day. No bonobo feeds its infants animal flesh 3 times a day. And yet we humans do that. And we create this dependency. And yes, it becomes a real dependency, and you eat some flesh, and it temporarily satisfies it. But this is not normal physiology, and we should honor that reality here. And now I've seen many children raised as vegans. They grow up in these strong, fit, healthy, bright, intellectually intact young people who go on to have healthy babies of their own. And clearly they are not deficient because they haven't been eating animal flesh. So what about the folks who do feel these meat cravings? One, no, they eventually go away. I had meat cravings for years after I became vegan. They eventually fade away. What could help beyond that? Here's where a place that these Impossible burgers, veggie burgers, that are meat-like might have a role, because in some of these cases, a part of it at least, is not so much genetic and physiologic as is just a craving for that, the memory of that biting into that juicy flesh-like burger there. And here, if once a week, one of these veggie burgers could help satisfy that craving, I'm all for it. But again, it should be a temporary stopgap measure, and as the weeks and months go by, space it out. Instead of one every week, how about one every 10 days, and one every 2 weeks? Stretch it out. And third, if it's not morally objectable to you, and I know this will be for many people, but those, especially the new folks who are transitioning, they may require, like getting off beta blockers or SSRI drugs. Some folks might need to taper this off. They may need to do a tapering down program. And some folks might need to eat a small amount of flesh once a week for X number of weeks. And again, like with the veggie burger there, to start spacing it out instead of once a week, then once every 10 days, every 2 weeks. And eventually it should slowly fade away. Now, I know other health professionals say, you're just keeping that addiction alive. Possibly everybody's got to find their own way through this, but if one needed to do this taper down program, and you're reviewing the flesh as medicinal, I've got this metabolic requirement for it right now, or need for it, but my intent is to taper off this stuff, then I think the animals will understand there. So that's a third possibility. So either gut it out, try these meat-based alternatives. Possibly you might need to do a taper down program with small amounts of animal flesh. Do the best you can. The important thing is the nature of the whole food stream flooding through your tissues day after day, as long as it's full of lots of especially high protein legumes, beans, peas, chickpeas, lentils, nuts, seeds, etc., with lots of green vegetables. And again, those Dr. Furman's G bombs, the greens, the onions, the nuts and seeds, the mushrooms, the legumes, you're going to do fine there. So yes, some people have a little challenge at transition time, but it's not overcomable, and any effort to move you down that plant-based road is certainly worthwhile. But that's what I think might be going on. But again, eventually those meat cravings fade away. So do what you can do to stick with it. The benefits are surpassingly great. Hope this helps, and eat your veggies.